Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be making this candy cane AirPod case. To use it, you just slide your AirPods in, and we're going to take the big loop and put it inside the smaller loop to fasten it. To take the AirPods out, you just push the AirPods out and they just easily pop out. This is a really simple, beginner-friendly tutorial if you're just looking for something new to try today. The materials that you'll need are scissors, a 4.5mm crochet hook, and a stitch marker, but if you don't have one, you can just use a paper clip or a bobby pin work really well. To get started, we're going to make a slip knot. To do this, you will take your yarn and you're going to twist it. And after you twist it, you can flip it on top of itself, and it should be on top of the longer part. And then you will grab that piece in the middle and just pull it right through. And then you'll form your knot, and you can insert your crochet hook and we will tighten it. Next, we're going to chain 5. So to do a chain, you will yarn over, which means you put the yarn over your hook and just pull through that one loop on your hook. That is one chain. We're going to do that again. So yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook. That's 2. Yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook. That's 3, and we're going to do 2 more. Now we have 5, and I'm just going to count my chains to make sure they're all there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. Next, we're going to do a slip stitch into the first chain we made. So you'll insert your hook into your first chain, and we are going to yarn over and pull that yarn through everything that's on our hook. Now you should have a little circle, and we're going to be doing everything from the inside of this circle moving forward. For round 1, we're going to do 5 single crochets in the middle of this circle. So to do a single crochet, you are going to insert your hook, grab the yarn, pull through just the circle, grab the yarn, and then pull through everything on your hook. That is one single crochet. Since that's the first stitch in this row, we're going to add a stitch marker just so we can mark which one that is once we get all the way around. And now we can continue with our 5 single crochets. We have our first one. So here's our second one. We will insert our hook, yarn over, pull through just the circle, yarn over, and then pull through everything on the hook. And we're going to do that 3 more times. So you should have a total of 5 stitches when you're done. Once you've completed your 5 single crochets, we are going to do a color change. So to do this color change, you are going to extend the loop, remove your hook, and we're going to insert our hook into those 2 little lower loops. Mine was giving me a little bit of trouble. There we go. Next, you can take your new color. For me, mine is white. And you're just going to lay it on top of your hook. And then you're going to pull that new color through both of those loops. now we can start our next row. Our next row is going to be an increase, which means that we are going to put 2 single crochets in every stitch that we just did. So I'm going to start by inserting where my stitch marker is and do a single crochet. So we are going to yarn over and pull through just the circle, or just the stitch, and then we're going to yarn over and pull through everything. There's our first single crochet. I'm going to remove my stitch marker and now add it to my first stitch in the next row, which will be that white one. I now have 1 single crochet, but we're increasing, so we need a second one in that same stitch. So I'm going into the same stitch I just did, and we're doing a second single crochet. And now we'll move on to the next stitch. And we're going to put 2 single crochets into this stitch as well. There's 1. And now my second one. And we are going to repeat this all the way around, where we put 2 single crochets into every stitch. This is called an increase. You also might notice that you still have this little red loop from when we did our color change. You can just take the red yarn and pull it, and it should disappear, and you can keep crocheting. I'm now going to go in for my last single crochet, and after we complete it, we can pull a little bit of an extra loop on that white yarn, and we'll remove our hook and insert it into the lower loops on that stitch. There should be 2 loops on your hook. We can now grab our red yarn, which is still attached. I'm just cutting these other loose ends just to get them out of my way. But we're going to take that red, and we're just going to pull it through those 2 loops, and then we can get started on our next row. So I'm doing a single crochet into that next row and adding my stitch marker. For this round, we are going to do a single crochet and then an increase, and repeat that all the way around. Single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase. You can also take that loop, that white loop on the other side of your yarn, and you can just pull it through. It should disappear. All right, I have my single crochet. Now in that next stitch, I'm going to increase and put 2. And in my next stitch, I'm going to just put 1 single crochet. And then in my next stitch, I'm going to put 2, and we'll just repeat that all the way around. 1, 2, 1, 2. You should have a total of 15 stitches at the end of this row. All right, and I just finished my last stitch in this row, so we're going to color change. You can insert your hook into the 2 lower loops and pull that white yarn through both of those loops. And now we can start our next round. Our next round is going to be single crochet 2 and then an increase. So here's my first single crochet in that same stitch that we had our stitch marker. And now I'm going to pull that loop of the old color, the red color. We're just going to pull it through so it can disappear. And then we can take our stitch marker and put it into our new stitch. Now we'll continue our sequence. We have our first single crochet already done. So in the next stitch, we'll do our second single crochet. And in the next stitch, we have an increase, so we're putting 2 in there. So here's 1, and in the same stitch, 2. And we'll repeat that sequence all the way around. 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, and then 2 in the same stitch. There's my 1. In the next stitch, 1 single crochet, and in the next stitch we have 2 single crochets. After this round, you should have a total of 20 stitches. Here's my last stitch in that row. And now we're going to do our color change, so we can leave the loop, put our hook in between the 2 lower loops, and we're going to pull our red yarn through. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through. Now we can start our next round, which is just going to be single crochet all the way around. So we'll do our first single crochet and then add our stitch marker and pull that loop of white that is still on our project. You're going to single crochet just all the way around for the next 7 or 8 rows, depending on what color that you want to be on top and that you want your loops to be. So if you want your loops to be red, you will end on either row 7 or row 8, and if you want it to be white, you'll end on either row 7 or row 8. But whichever color that you want the loops to be, that's the color that you'll want to end on. So I will see you after 7 or 8 rounds of just single crochet. You can crochet along with me, or you can skip to about 20 minutes and 50 seconds when you're finished crocheting all of your rows. All right, once you've done your last single crochet, since we still have that little piece of white, we are going to do a slip stitch into the next stitch. And now you should have a solid color all the way around. I put my AirPods in there just to make sure that they were a snug fit, and I cut the extra yarn. And we can tighten, and you should have your majority of your AirPod case now. I'm going to weave the ends in towards the inside of the case. So I'm going to pull that red yarn through so it's close to that white extra string of yarn. And I'm going to double knot these together and then cut the extra yarn. If you double knot them on the inside of the case, then those colors just won't be noticeable than if you do it on the outside of the case. And next we're going to do this smaller loop first. I did white on the first case. I'm doing red on this second case. So I'm going to do a slip knot. So we twist the yarn and then flip it on top of itself. And then you can pull that middle loop through. And there's your slip knot. We're going to insert our hook and then pull to tighten. You can fold your case in half and you're going to find the middle 3 loops. Out of those middle 3 loops, you're going to slip stitch into the right of those 3 loops. So here's my stitch furthest on the right out of the 3, and I'm going to slip stitch. And then you're going to chain 5. So here is my chain 1, yarn over, pull through, and 2, 3, 4, 5. We're now going to skip that middle stitch and do a slip stitch on the left. So yarn over and pull through everything. That is your small loop, and you can now cut your yarn. After you pull your hook through, we're going to take those 2 little extra pieces of string and you're going to just weave them to the inside of the AirPod case. Here's my second one. And then on the inside of our case, we are going to double knot these 2 extra strings together. And then you can cut the extra yarn. Next, we're going to do the larger loop, so we will flip it to the other side, and whichever 2 stitches line up with that smaller loop that we did, we're going to use those 2 stitches. You can do another slip knot. So take the yarn, twist it, and then flip it on top of itself and pull through. All right, I'm now going to do my slip stitch onto that right side that lines up with the smaller loop. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through everything that's on my hook. And now we are going to chain anywhere between 30 and 35, depending on how long that you want your loop to be. Now we're going to slip stitch into the stitch right next to the one that we just made. There's my slip stitch. I'm now going to cut the extra yarn, and we're going to repeat what we did on the first side, where we make sure these extra tails of yarn are weaved towards the inside of the case so that we can double knot them and cut them. And now you have your finished AirPods case, and just to show you how it fits, I did one less row, so I think this was 7 rows crocheting for me. You can just slide your case in there and insert the big loop through the smaller loop and pull. So cute. Thank you for trying this tutorial, and show me whichever colors that you used. If you used a different color combination, here is the example of the white candy cane case with the white on top and a snug fit. If you have any tips or tricks for me or anything that would make future tutorials easier for you, please let me know. But otherwise, I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you love your new AirPod case and how it turned out. Thanks.